There he is.
There he is. What a handsome man.
I guess a whiskey fan.
Doubles your heading to Dornoch, son.
Aye.
Get in.
Whiskey.
You are listening to episode 1 of Dornoch Distillery Thompson Brothers Extravaganza series.
That's it. It's the furthest north we've ever been to record, and maybe the first north we'll ever go to record, because I feel massively out of comfort. We're in a dungeon.
We're back. We're in another sort of whiskey. What are we calling this? A whiskey vault. Like we've been in the diggers' vaults. We've been down there, but we have made it. The Whisky Stories Whisky Wagon has finally made it to its destination this afternoon. We've been on the go for a while. It's Friday the 21st as we're recording. We left Edinburgh at 7 o'clock this morning. Had a quick stop in at Tomatin Distillery for a wee dram or two. Truck drove the rest of the way without a dram in him.
Yeah, only nearly crashed once.
We did okay. We did okay, but this was the whole point of this journey. We've been kindly invited up. We're in Dornoch Castle and we're here with the Thompson Brothers. We've got Phill and Simon. How are you, lads?
Oh, I think we're going to survive the week.
Yeah.
I should make it to 5 p.m.
Yes, well, it's Friday after all. You know, we're nearly there, and you know, it's been a fantastic afternoon that we've had so far. We've enjoyed sort of being in the bar, looking around the
whiskey selections.
The whiskey selection is just mental. I mean, we say that we're lucky in Edinburgh with Athletic Arms, with over 800 bottles of open whiskey and the pricing and stuff like that. But I mean, when Angus and Chuck walked in here, I think you should have like, please don't touch the glass or anything like that. So we're just looking at hands like, oh my god, look at that one. It's great.
Scottish guys that have a slight affinity of Japan just breathing heavier and heavier the further
look
they
at
get
that
into
one,
the bar.
Chuck. Oh, Angus, look at that one back there. Is that it? They were. I mean,
I think it's worth saying that obviously Thompson Bros have had quite a lot of mentions in the podcast, the last 70 odd episodes.
Took your time to get back to us, lads. Yeah. I don't know how many times we had to say, but no, honestly.
But even people from all over Scotland, all over the industry, brought you boys something. One that sticks out in my head is Charlie Human from Inverness handing us the 34-year-old Jura.
Yes, right.
And me being really being a bit of a dick about it, being like, well, you're not going to convince me of that, and then going, oh my goodness, that's bloody delicious. And that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, that's the one that just tastes like kind of diesel and like mutton and stuff like that.
Unbelievable.
Diesel and mutton, brilliant.
It's like soup. When we picked up the cask, it was we cracked it open, and I was like, because I took the heads off it, and I looked at the cask inside, there was no char, and what I could see probably just toasted, but there's nothing. There's nothing. So it was like the most refill cask you could find for 34 years. It's completely neutral. It's just like new make spirit that's softened.
And Jura, you should give them a little look back in. That I think I don't know exactly what's happened, but possibly there's been a change in who's making the blending decisions. You see the no chill filtering arriving, the blend composition's different.
I think Greg's probably driving.
Greg Glass is really like, I went over actually phase last year, and now they're playing, obviously we know they're playing a bit with Scottish oak and trying to experiment as well. And so Whitmaker certainly going in the right direction for reconvincing me of Jura. But anyway, we're here to talk about you lads and how it all started.
Well, what I would say is, I can remember, was it there was a blend or under
Thompson Bros over 6.
Over 6.
So that was you messaged me very early on. Right, Ross, I'm in the bar, want something cheap and cheerful and something you'll enjoy.
A blend. It was a blend I wanted, something different.
Half a second later, I'm like, Thompson Bros over 6.
Yeah.
It is the best value bottle in whiskey.
Yeah.
It has been since it was released.
Yeah.
I've still got maybe 4 bottles or so in the flat from my whiskies. I think I was getting 28 quid ex fat, and I remember being here when you just got that parcel of stock about 2 years ago, and me and my dad being like, oh, that's really cool. And they're like, what do you mean over 6? And then trying to go, that is bloody delicious.
Well, the thing about it was and then what happened is now I mean, you know, I do apologise, but I sometimes try not to apologise for my ignorance when it comes to this. I like whiskey, but I don't know an awful lot about whiskey, which is why we started the podcast, so that Angus and I are whiskey novices.
We're whiskey novices.
Unfortunately, the only guy that knew something about whiskey was Ross that we knew, so he had to come along. We're still trying to find a replacement for him.
Chuck's on trial.
What was the crime? But the thing was, I knew nothing, and so of course, first thing I do is I try and find like Thompson Brothers or Thompson Bros on Instagram. Couldn't find you, and then I was looking, and I still couldn't find you. And then basically, then it was the Buckfast logo. it was not but fat. The fortified wine.
The red wine cask Altmore.
That was right. And then there was the Tesco club card, the Tesco 2-stripe one again.
The Highland
Something
blend.
very similar to that.
We call that trademark.
Yeah, we've got the trademark on
They
that.
let it expire.
That was
What, you've got the trademark of?
That Tesco value. Yeah, we
Not that.
Really?
They'd let it go dead.
Yeah, we didn't know that.
They
When
like-
when we put the first release out, I was like, it must have been like 10 or 12 years ago that they did that. So we just rolled with it, and then we checked the trademark.
I was like, Phil, you need to start double checking before you do
Double-check
these
trademark.
things. So we double
Yeah,
checked.
'cause I
I was
mean,
like, they let the trademark go dead.
My theory with it is it's easier to ask for forgiveness.
So
Yeah.
let's rewind all the way to the start, because we're already getting
Well, hang on.
we're already seeing how much fun you guys
Well-
are, and also the dynamic of the business. You two running completely
Well,
different parts of the
that was it.
business.
So that popped up, you guys, and then we're lucky with that the diggers in Edinburgh, they get a lot of good stock from you guys in, so it's been something that we go to very regularly in terms of that. But Dornoch Distillery, that's when I started finding out what you guys are all about and what you guys do. So tell me, right, we're sitting here in Dornoch Castle. Let's start with that. What was the sort of starting point for you guys?
Are you from Dornoch?
No, we're from the Black Isle, so about 38 miles south. But yeah, the starting point was probably just a few metres above our heads.
Yes.
So we're kind of in the dungeons just now, and the floor above here is a bedroom now, but it used to be the original bar of the castle. So working in hospitality, family business, people come, people go, and all of a sudden you find yourself at quite a young age temporarily managing a bar, which when we took the place over, it's 25th anniversary this year when our parents took the place over.
Right.
They had a decent whiskey selection, and that was our first bit of education. Then you'd be tasting things, deciding what to order next. You finish one bottle, you get the Gordon MacPhail catalogue out, and you decide what's going on in the next order. So yeah, that was kind of the starting point.
And so, if people don't know Dornoch and know the area, your family have this castle, decided this is the business we're going to go in, hotel, restaurant, bar. It's an area we have great beaches.
Madonna got married across the road.
great,
Chuck's grandfather.
Chuck's a bit of a boy around there.
known for like world class golf course, etc. So you're already attracting kind of high end American clientele that are coming up to the Scottish Highlands, and is that how the business kind of.
Elon Musk got married across the road as well, but I don't know if we want to talk about that.
Fair.
in my great grandfather's church.
Sorry, we've got to reference this, right? Chuck's found out recently. Was it your granny?
I said when I was coming up here, I emailed my gran.
Emailed your gran?
Yeah, she emails me regularly, and she doesn't normally read what I reply with, so this was quite surprising. I said I was coming up to Dornoch, and she was like, "Oh, your great grandfather was Reverend John Bentig, and he was the Reverend of the Dornoch Cathedral."
Do you remember the Only Fools and Horses episode where they go back to visit France for Uncle Albert's, and everyone suddenly looks like Uncle Albert? Suddenly, like, what was this guy getting up to? I think if we start walking around Dornoch tonight, we're like, Chuck, is that a cousin? Everyone's going to look.
Well, the email was like 4 lines about him, and then underneath it just said he had 10 children. And then, listed.
I think everyone's going to look like you tonight.
Alright, yeah.
So your parents buy a castle.
Yeah, I think you need to put it into context. So our parents, my mum and dad, they came through in hospitality, and I think they left hospitality. My dad famously said he'll never go back to hospitality. And a couple of his friends that he was working with basically told him this hotel, amazing hotel in Dornoch, was for sale. It's very close to you. You should go and look at it. So he came up and looked at it, and it was like closed for the winter season. It's pretty dilapidated, really run down, and not really on the market for a lot of money. So yeah, it's not like we need to be careful to say our parents.
Of course.
This is not bad.
Yeah. I think you're a married man now, so you can't strategically use it as well.
Yeah, Caroline won't listen to this. It's fine.
So you start working in their business.
And how old are you guys at this point then? When you're sort of in and around a hotel, bar, hospitality?
15, 17, that kind of age.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're kind of born and raised in hotels and hospitalities. We had a few years off where our parents had sold their hotel and vowed never to do it again. But yeah, it sucked them back in, and so yeah, they ended up here, working behind the bar, tasting whiskies, and then it just kind of slowly grew out of control, became the drink of preference. Started learning, started collecting, reading books, some of the early websites.
Kind of early 20s accelerated.
So it just kind of gradually snowballed and like a logarithmic effect until it had grown out of control. I was collecting.
Simon was like an Edward Hour collector.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I'm serious. The only person in the world.
Well, that's funny because
Is that Balekin as well, or just Edward Hour?
So I had a pretty good collection of Edinburgh. I had a massive Balblair collection, and then just other bits and pieces. And then that started drifting into going off to auctions. This is before all the online auctions or even online bidding. I would go off to live auctions, and it was a bit of a mixture because I'd write out all the lots, do some price history research, and I also know trade prices for things as well. So like, great, I can buy this bottle of whatever distillery 10-year-old from the 1960s, and look, I bought it for below trade price for the current. And so these kind of things you're picking up, and then you start getting a taste for the old stuff, the distillates from the 1960s, 70s, 50s. And yeah, it just kind of got out of control there.
We found that the people turned up to the bar as well. We started having more and more people coming who were like, oh wow, you've got this open. Then all of a sudden it kind of snowballed, and that's that. At the time was that European kind of geek circle, and I mean that in the most endearing way because I'm
100%.
Definitely part of that. And these guys were coming in, so like Lindor's Whisky Society and some of the guys who are in the Malt Maniacs, they'd travel around Scotland, and then they'd hear that we'd have to. Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting an investor call. I'm going to ignore that and pretend it's not happening. Well, we found these guys were like traveling for the bar, and they were like asking for the cool stuff, and they weren't just going, I want a Glenmorangie 10-year-old, as a lot of like the Americans who are coming through in the summer. So we're like, oh, this is great. This allows us to basically like, open our bottles that we want to open, and it's like, pulls us in for more, and we just kept buying and buying.
We spoke last week with Justine Hazelhurst on the podcast about Fife and Fife becoming a sort of recognised region and things. And one of the things that we talked about for all the distilleries that are now opening up in there is that they don't have. I'm a Fifer myself, and we don't have an area, a hotel or anything like that where you can say
a destination whiskey bar.
Yeah, exactly, a whiskey bar. Where and we've talked to Simon Smith. It was a George Hotel in.
Whiskey list, winning awards, trying to make a bit of a name for yourself.
Did you guys then see that, and where like people aren't just coming, we'll stay at the Dornoch Castle because we're on our way, or we're in Dornoch and it's got a nice bar, where people are actually starting to come here to go, this is a whiskey, it's really...
Yeah, we found that. So we found, I think probably there's a few people on the journey that kind of helped with this. So we were going to the auctions. Tears and Bonhams were kind of the two main hammer auctions that we were going to.
Some of the best stuff in like small provincial auctions.
Yeah, we pick up some loads of great bottles, and then kind of by coincidence we met John Beach, who's got Fiddlers at Loch Ness, and John had won like SLTN Whisky Bar of the Year for like 3 or 4 years in a row, and just stopped entering it, that kind of thing. And then we met Angus as well from Decadent Drinks, obviously now Decadent Drinks, and we became kind of a little bit of a drinking circle, and we used to buy old bottles. We tried to find an excuse to open old bottles. Obviously for Angus it's like any excuse to open an old bottle is a good one. But with John,
sounds like Angus,
this one
we found ourselves kind of really getting close with these guys, and John had what was kind of a destination bar with Fiddlers. So, and we didn't design it based on what John was doing. It was just like, that's natural progression for us. So John is kind of on the Great Glen, he's out on Loch Ness. So it's like, if you're going from like Skye to Speyside and you're a whiskey geek, you're going to drop by Fiddlers at Loch Ness. And there was nothing else in and around Inverness.
So you're generally
wasn't there at all.
So you're generally starting to see that your rooms are filling up, your restaurant's busier, etc., because of the offering you've put in the bar.
Yeah, I mean, Dornoch, as you covered, Dornoch such a busy tourist town anyway. It's all about, so for us from a business perspective, it's all about filling those shoulder months. How do you fill the winter, how do you fill the shoulder months? And like whiskey gives people that excuse to come up. And it's like you can base yourself in Dornoch, you can get to Old Pulteney, you can get to Wolfburn, you can get to Eight Doors, you can get up to Orkney.
I mean, I've heard of some amazing kind of offerings you put on like in the early months of the year as well, where you can come and stay and then spend X amount back in the bar tab. Is that right?
Yeah, we do.
No, that's.
I know the Highlander does something similar to that.
Yeah, we do.
Which you should definitely visit.
Highland is great, one of my favourites. But yeah, we do basically for whiskey people extra, pretty cheap rooms. We do 20% discount on our already very fairly priced bar.
Amazing.
And then we also, last 2 winters, we've done an exclusive Dornoch bottling for the hotel that's just available for people who come and stay on that deal. And so we for the winter in the Highlands of Scotland, you just need to present people with an absolute no-brainer.
It's weird in Scottish hospitality because it's actually really difficult to get people, such a huge swathe of population south of the Tay. Like it's really difficult to get people north. Like they think Dunkell's doing a good job to drag people up. It's like an hour and a bit from Glasgow. It's not that far, but we're another 2.5 hours north from there. It's like, so we really need to drag people up here. So that's why with the whiskey bar, and that's kind of applied to our philosophy with the independent bottling, it was all about, we don't have the footfall just to basically charge whatever we want to charge. And we were never like that anyway. Of course. So it was all about offering good liquid at a fair price. And that's what we always did in our bar. That's what we continue doing with our independent bottling. It was always how much would I pay? How much would I like to go into a bar and pay, or how much would I like to go to a shop and buy a bottle of that for?
How did that initial conversation start? Where you say independent bottling?
Was it a happy accident or was it an intention? Because we've had independent bottlers on before, and sometimes people maybe just think, I'll buy a cask, that'll be great, and then it's like, well, what would I do with it? Or people get given casks, or people do go out intentionally and say, right, I'm going to start bottling and marketing whiskey independently.
So pre Thompson Brothers as we are now, we've done a few bottlings, but nothing particularly serious or commercially minded. We did one for our own bar. We've done a couple. We do an annual sort of whiskey holiday with friends. So our drinking club plus friends will go around and do a thing. We've organised little bottlings for that. So before we had the distillery, it wasn't anything serious. Independent bottling wasn't in the business plan. We just got asked by our Japanese importer for the gin if we could arrange something. I'm like, yeah, we could do that.
Okay, got the relationships, etc. So, I'm sure we could do something.
Because I suppose it makes a huge difference from your, we've spoken to, as Angus has said, and it's that jump when an investment into a cask, and then it's the prices and the costs associated with it. The whiskey's expensive in itself, but then it's the bottling and all that goes along with it, marketing and things. But I suppose if you've already got your own bar, which has whiskey in it, we already have a market where you can say, well, it doesn't matter, because if we could bottle our own stuff, and it's just if we only ever sell it behind the bar, then we just have a large amount of cases.
That's what's said about it's taking on that first outturn.
Because you can only say if you say I want to get a halted 230 litres, right, and suddenly go, how many cases of whiskey am I going to get stuck with in the house?
We could never do that. I mean, you could sell a few cases through the summer, and you could just never go for a full outturn. So for us, it was always, we focused really heavily on export early on. So we built up some good relationships, and we looked at exporting, did a lot of exclusives, and again, we didn't really know what we were doing, so we weren't coming, and that I mean that in a really kind of positive way. So we weren't coming from another company who was going, that's your set margin, that's what you work for, that's what you should be looking for, that's your importer margin, that's your retail margin. I was going, okay, basically speaking to my importers, being like, what's fair for you? What's fair for us? And we just basically worked our way through it, and kind of I used it quite a lot. It's fumbled our way through it, and we've just there was an intention there, but it wasn't a grand plan. And then I think because we didn't have that exposure to the rest of the industry and that experience, then we weren't applying the same methodology that everyone else was applying. That's your margin, that's your importer, that's your retailer, that's your distributor, allocate that for marketing, allocate this. We were kind of can we turn it over quickly? We value in our business, and we still do, is because we never had any money, and we still until recently, through the investment, haven't had any money really through the business. Everything's gone back into Dornoch.
It's all been cash flow.
It's all been about the velocity of the money. So it's not just about putting out a really expensive bottle and it kind of digests its way through really slowly and constipated through the system. You know, it will work. You will sell it. It'll just work, take ages. Yeah. For us, we're kind of like, right, we want to sell this quickly. I want my importer picking up the phone saying, I'd love to another cask. Cool, that's the price.
She'll probably have the space as well, Phil. We'll see it tomorrow. But like, I remember going to, because am I right in saying organic warehouse was what you had for a long time? When you were bottling stuff, it was this space across the other side of the town. And at the same time, because we call it a warehouse, we've been in warehouses today, it wasn't big. No, it was kind of like a bigger garage, which also doubled up as a bottling plant.
Yeah, it's everything. It's been maxed out for a few years now. Yeah. So we're Thompson Brothers
bumbling 60,000 bottles a year. That's kind of
that's 60,000 bottles a year.
I mean, it's amazing out that space, but yeah.
There's not a bit of issues with flooding at the very beginning.
Flooding at Christmas, Hogmanay this year. So I woke up at like 7 a.m. and I was like, it rained a bit last night. I go up into the warehouse and it was like slightly creeping into the back. And I was like, okay, that's not too bad. Doesn't, it stopped raining. I don't think it'll, forgetting that it takes a while for the, everything to inundate. And I came to the hotel, had a coffee, had on the ground here, because this is the place I worry about if it's really heavy rain.
Of course.
Wee cracks and gaps and stuff like that. And then I went back to the warehouse. I was like, it's creeped inside. Time to get some sandbags. So I started building up sandbags, and then Anna, who works with me, she basically came over and helped me. Then all of a sudden it was like, I think at one point it was like 15 centimetres, and it was getting pumped out. We were trying to pump it out. A few local folk came in. So that's the first time it's happened since 2007, but we kind of knew it was inevitable. Yeah. But my priority when I went in there was basically get the stock off the ground as quick as you can. And then I think the only major issue we had was like some of the load cells on the scales got wet and still need to be replaced. But that was it. But so it's a risk in
terms of you just set it up. See the fact that you're so isolated in comparison to other bottlers. When you start bottling regularly, is there any decision at all other than you go, okay, we're going to bottle it ourselves as well? We can't outsource that. It's going to take too long to send stuff down.
I did the maths. I did the maths and I was like, fucking hell, it takes ages, and they charge us this, and it takes ages. Like, what's going on?
We're just going to have to learn to do it ourselves.
Well, we're bottling already with the gin, so we're already doing it. We know.
So you started with gin.
That's how we started.
We've always bottled the gin in house. The early days of the independent bottling, it was all outsourced. There's a bit of a process to get it, because you can't use the same equipment for gin as you do whiskey.
Right.
People have, but it causes problems. It should be entirely separate lines, separate equipment, no shared hoses or anything. So we needed a whole separate line for that and more space. So when we're able to get that site up there, get the bonded transportation, then we had everything we needed to bring everything in house. The maths made sense on it, but what really helps is everything's fast. It's as fast as you are.
Yeah.
You're not sending an email and receiving samples 3 months later and then sending another email. Yeah, can we recask this one, or whatever process, or having it sent to a bottling hall, and the bottling hall's like, it's 2-3 months. No,
it just sounds so many. It's incredibly complicated.
Cash flow dense. Like you need so much cash to be able to kind of do that.
Yeah. Well, a couple of questions on that then. First of all, then we'll talk about the cash flow side of things, and when you're independently bottling and stuff. Are you when you're doing that? You obviously will start probably without laying casks down, especially with space. Are you literally buying to bottle as quickly as possible,
or did you spreadsheet buying, effectively picking samples from a spreadsheet? Kind of figuring out, see if there's something there.
Brokers, are you going direct?
Yes and no. I mean, I think we've kind of worked our way up the rungs over the past few years, and I think there's a lot of trust capital now, especially we have a distillery. I think that's really, really helped with the kind of prime resources in the industry. But I mean,
having your own warehouse and bottling facility, even our own bonded transportation, means that we're super low friction because you're not relying on all these other parties to get in queues, which means we're probably the smallest entity that some of the biggest companies deal with directly, and that's because we do it all ourselves, which makes us very low friction for them to deal with us. No problems, no hassle, minimal.
Maybe apart from payment,
minimal middlemen. So we've made ourselves very, very easy to deal with.
I imagine being Thompson's brother, Whiskey nerds across the globe are all super excited, all enter the ballots, all these kind of things. And we were already talking about it before we were recording, like, giving distilleries a chance you maybe would have written off, like Jura, like the 3041 Euro had. Even there's a couple other ones.
The blended stuff, but actually the ballot's quite a good note, because initially when you're starting to build up a slight following, as you're saying, you're trying to get your exporters to take X amount of every outturn perhaps already, but then you say, okay, it's a ballot. That kind of builds up a bit of excitement. You ballot a release, even if it's not the most remarkable liquor in the world, you're going to get some people go, oh, I'd quite like to be a part of this and try and get one of those.
It's not by design, to be honest. It's really...
Was it just easier to manage?
It was a bit easier to manage that way. I mean, we might find that we might only have 48 bottles for the website or 60 bottles for the website or something, direct sales on a cask, because by the time you distribute it amongst all of our markets, plus UK retailers, then you're like, okay, well, you barely got any left for your own website, so balancing it was the right way to do it. But again, it sort of adds another... We didn't expect our website to be as popular, perhaps. None of this was ever really designed. It's just kind of happened, and our websites ended up being really kind of popular. People, I know it's expensive to ship from, but people are coming to us direct, which is...
Because most people rely on getting into Inverary Morton or Roma whiskies and say, okay, we'll be able to get... But people going, well...
So most of the stuff sold direct, you guys will sell?
Well, exported and then sold.
It's a fine balance. So like I want to support more UK retail. We definitely do decent volumes with UK retail. I think part of it has been, and with complete candour, is over the past couple of years we've been putting so much money into the new distillery project.
Yeah.
So, and that's all been done. We haven't taken investment on until recently, so it's been kind of all done from cash flow. So there's always been like we ended up selling a bit more than probably other independent bottlers would sell direct, but we found there was appetite for it. But then also it's about, it's a bit of politics. You need to make sure you drop in sweeteners with different importers and retailers and things like that.
So
it's a fine balance.
The exporters.
Well, hang on 2 seconds. So the second question I was going to ask was basically, was it a blessing or a curse having another business that you're running, but like with the hotel behind you? Because you say to yourself, well, it might not be a situation where you guys had to actually say, we're all in, this is our full-time job right now, and if it sinks, we'll sink with it, or if it goes successful, we'll go with it. Or has it made it even harder going, now we're effectively spinning even more plates that we're doing?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, because on the hotel side of things, so that was our parents' business, our family business. And so that gave us a nice booster in the early days, because we got the old building that was in the back of the garden there, turned that into the distillery. So that was a good little boost, having the ability to do something there, reduced our startup costs.
Sure.
And then now, as of late October, November last year, the Thompson Independent Traders Limited, which is as of today still fully owned by me and Phill.
Yeah, I was going to say that. In our WhatsApp chat before we went, I said that's got to be an OnlyFans.
It's also to watch lawyers abbreviate it.
Yeah,
it's so good. You're just like.
we formed that. That's what we're doing the fundraising into. But that owns 100% of Dornoch Distillery Company Limited, plus the independent bottling on the stock. Thompson Bros, the gin, everything's in there. And then it also owns now Dornoch Castle Hotel Limited, so the whole thing's together. It's kind of
going full circle.
And no pressure.
With regards to your parents, then, like, so I've got a brother, a younger brother, who we're quite close in age and stuff like that. And we were always mucking about together and things. With you guys, then, with your parents, were they like, oh, the boys are in the back garden distilling again and all that kind of stuff, or were they like, when you went to them and said, we want to take, because it's a family business at the end of the day, and you have to have gone to them at some point and said, this is the direction we want to go in, and were they, go for it, or were they a bit like, oh, come on,
please stop rolling blood tubs in the garden?
We shan't say too much on that, but we'd already been doing some distilling experiments. We did our first legal proper whiskies at Strathern, and winter of 2013, early 2014. So that was kind of testing some of our principles of what we're thinking about old style production. So we were already kind of messing around. Phil did some work experience. I did as well actually at Balblair as well, just to do.
Well, you were the biggest customer by the sounds of it.
Did we ever get a bottle? Is our bottle still there? Did you ever
Still
get
sitting there,
Still sitting there.
Yeah.
Just reminded me, I've got a very old bottle of Balblair which is on display there. So I think we're going to be.
You just worry with like
we're
corporate
gonna-
companies that people come and go and they're
Okay.
like, "Is
Yeah,
that yours?"
because John McDonald's gone now. He knew all about it,
Yeah.
but they probably don't have it written down anywhere.
Yeah, it's good point. You turn up and say, I'll take my bottle back, and they go, no you won't.
So I mean, that's quite a unique situation. But in terms of then, as Ross was sort of alluding to, with building relations, because this is a part that we really didn't understand fully about independent bottlers, to then suddenly see this sort of the journey that they can go on, where we just think about independent bottlers as, there's these guys up in Dornoch and we see their bottles in our little boozer that we drink in Edinburgh. We don't appreciate that your whiskey goes right the way across the world. And as we were talking about in the car, Chuck was saying he's just back from Japan, and it's like there is a massive following of people over on the other side of the world who are drinking your whiskey and absolutely loving it. So how did all that come around, and how do you start getting yourself into that position?
So most of it, so when we started up the distillery, we were looking for sales channels, very early business plan. Okay, don't spend too much setting it up, and make a good gin and get that out to market. We kind of focus more on export. Through most of our initial export contacts were from the sort of European and global connoisseur scene. Either you knew someone who was an importer in our country, and whiskey's their hobby, but it's also part of their job, and they import some brands and independent bottlers. So we had a lot of or they're one step removed for someone we knew quite well from the global whiskey scene, knew an importer, or you would talk to someone in a country and it's like, who's the good guys, who's the bad guys, who's bringing in stuff and being fair with their prices, who's taking the piss. So we're able to get a good view of a lot of different markets, either direct contacts or one step removed. And we still do that now as we're thinking about expanding. You're talking to whiskey enthusiasts in different countries, different states. So,
who's doing it well, who's not doing it
Well,
well.
it's funny because I kind of picture it as, okay, I'm an independent bottler, how do I get them to import my bottlings? But you're coming from a really good point of view. We're offering quite a unique product. We're going to work with the selected importers that we want to work with. Was that straight away looking at those? You already had this audience, Germany, Holland, as you said, the kind of whiskey.
I think there was trust capital
market
already there from the bar. So the guys we were speaking to, they're like, oh yeah, I know these boys from the bar. And they knew who we were already.
Right.
So there's like already that relationship being built up. Oh yeah, because a lot of what you might find is a lot of importers, they're geeks. And
they come to Scotland with their pals and all the rest of it.
And if they've been through the door here, then
they know we open the old stuff. They know we're into the old stuff. They like to see that sort of side of things. So that's kind of where a lot of the relationships were built up. And I suppose there was trust already there that I trust that they'll do the right thing at Dornoch Distillery, and I'll support them early on. No, I don't want a gin, but I will support it because I'll help the boys out.
Right.
And then from there, the independent bottling just kind of grew on top of that. I think it's just it's looking at the bigger picture, that like the castle and what we did, and I do ponder on this because there's probably times where I definitely hated it, hated what you were doing, but then you're also like, all of that was building for now. The hard yards were one deck scrub in the bar at 1 o'clock in the morning after you stayed up chatting to somebody. I mean, that's the shitty stuff that you go through at the time. In hindsight, you're like, oh, actually, it was worth standing and chatting to that guy at the bar. It was worth taking the time with that person.
Well, because I mean, what's really nice about the story so far is you can see a progressive stepping stone, where it's like what you've just basically said there is, we've seen the bar work, create a name and a reputation and trust. We've heard it so many times in the industry. Everything is built on trust with the whiskey side, and it's when you're purchasing casks. Peter from Woven said the gatekeepers in Scotch whisky are some of the nicest people that you could meet. Everyone thinks of gatekeepers as the big bad guys that are keeping the gates closed. But on the flip side of that, he said, make one mistake with those people, misplace their trust with you, and you're finished. You won't be able to buy any more stock. So the bar, become trust. You know, if you walk into the bar, you don't know what's going to be behind the bar potentially, but it's going to be good stuff, rare stuff, unique stuff.
And you'll get a bespoke service
at a very good price. Then all of a sudden it's like, right, well, if you're going to, if these guys are bottling and like what you said, I know the bar, I know what they're like, so I know that they're going to be putting good liquid in the glass.
They're not going to take put liquid in good glass. Don't take the piss on the price. It's genuinely that simple.
Yeah. So now, so again, I don't want to lead on too much because as this is going to be a two-parter, and tomorrow we're going to be sort of seeing it. But you've mentioned it a few times. But what we're seeing now is like people like maybe myself who'd never really heard of who you were at the time. I've really enjoyed the stuff that you've been putting into your independently bottled stuff. But of course, Dornoch Distillery is the next step. So suddenly now the exciting part is, well, hang on a minute. It's that step again. It's like you built the trust with me as a consumer, going all your stuff,
presenting other people's liquid and making me enjoy it. Then you've decided to ferment this spirit for how much longer, etc. Using different yeast strains, using different barley strains, being so transparent because you are the source where it's come from.
So I don't want to go too deep in it because that is what we'll be doing tomorrow, but I take it, I'm assuming when you're starting out, it was always about a distillery.
Yeah, it was always about a distillery. I think Dornoch was, that was always the goal, was to make our own spirit. And the independent bottling kind of just was a piece of the puzzle that fell in place. Yeah. Not by design, it just kind of fell in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was a lot that to kind of link the bar and the independent bottling. There's a lot that got kind of transplanted from the way we ran the bar. So we're less focused. The more expensive a bottle gets on the bar for us to buy, we're pretty flexible on the margin. So we tend to run reducing margins the more expensive the bottles get, and we see it as as a cash transaction, I guess. You also want to turn these bottles over. There's nothing worse than going to a bar.
The bottle's been there for 3 years. For £20 less, I would buy it, and maybe then have another couple of drams afterwards.
There's a few values there. I mean, I've probably said it before, but I remember going into a whiskey bar with two guys who are very wealthy. Had a browser on the shelf, look at the list, and you could see that their pricing was the opposite. It was like standard margins for standard things, and the more expensive the bottles got, the bigger the margins got. And these guys, multi-millionaires, but their whiskey was their hobby. They knew whiskey, and they ordered. Well, the three of us, we just ordered. I think it was like Talisker 10, and moved on. Whereas if fair value was being offered, they probably would have spent hundreds. We spent 20 quid.
Value for money is a huge. It's a huge thing, and it's easily lost. We were talking about it. I've talked about it in the podcast before. We were talking about it when we were driving up, and I said, I did the NC 500 a few years ago with an ex-girlfriend, and I sort of said, like, it's the most ripped off I've ever felt in my own country, was stopping off at different places and just finding like people are just putting margins, and what they're doing is they're attacking tourist trade, and they're saying, and so when you do come across a place where with that attitude, because it's easy to think, look, the more expensive this whiskey that we've bought to put behind our bar means that we'll be attacking a much more a clientele that will have money, which means that they probably won't mind if we just bump the margin up a little bit more. And as you've said, it can work totally.
It's not how you get repeat custom, is it?
If you're an accountant on a spreadsheet, sure, it looks better if everything's on that kind of flat margin or increasing margin basis. But we're looking at the turnover. We're looking at getting business that you wouldn't otherwise have, because you lose these people and you wouldn't know that you're losing them. You wouldn't, because they just go and order a Lafroig 10 instead.
It was exactly the same. Like again, Scotch at the Balmoral, like it was okay, 750 quid for Macallan 40. It is a ridiculous price, but it's also the cheapest price for that dram in the UK, because see, somebody comes in and buys that, then we can introduce into loads of amazing stuff behind the bar, maybe still 200-300 quid a dram. We're talking about the 1% of whiskey bars, but they go, well, I've seen the bottle in duty free for X amount. It's our worst margin in the bar, for example, etc. But that's how you get somebody to come across the world.
You see on break
your
evens
bar again.
Yeah,
you see on break evens in bars. Sorry, you see like someone will come up front and centre. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's a really fancy whatever type of bottle, but it's a break even. So it's 20 quid, but it's you're not going to get it cheaper anywhere else.
Yeah.
And then, but you're going to sit there and go, oh, that was lovely. What else can I have next?
Yeah.
Twofold from that, you're probably going to stay and spend more,
Yeah.
and you've just become a mouthpiece for the brand.
Correct,
You will be a brand ambassador and be like, go to Dornoch Castle or go to whichever bar you see value in because they're good value.
25 or 35 mils.
25 here.
It's not bad. We'll let you off.
Tell me, Phil, when did it become a movement for you guys? Because you're already selling a lot of bottles, you're exporting a lot. You decide, okay, we need to get Thompson Bros IBs into bars, into the on-trade, because that really is how you get all these brand ambassadors. Have you tried this? It's available here, blah, blah, blah. How did you make that move?
So it's really interesting. So we actually, you can sum this up, but we always say we never really spent on marketing, and we didn't. It was all kind of natural and organic, and of course, like me taking time to put an Instagram post up, that is a marketing spend because my time could be elsewhere. So an accountant will always tell you that that you do have a marketing spend.
Yeah.
It's just like you're not quantifying it because you're not paying somebody to do it. We just tried to be we wanted to kind of offer something back, and I think during COVID, just when the bars reopened, we did a break-even cask into the Edinburgh bars.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Which was like
at the end.
So
Finished stuff in Stout.
Yeah, stout cask in Scour, I think, something like that. And it was really good liquid, and we just did it as break-even cask. Basically covered the cost of the glass, the corks, capsules, seals, the boxes and everything. I would explain to people like, look, this bottle's cost me like whatever 18 quid. By the way, most of it's tax. Sorry about that. But yeah, it was really good. We got support with Raw Mal whiskies on that. So I think things like that you put on its head and you go, okay, well, you could have sold it. You could have made a bit of a margin on it, but the value was to us that you've done the right thing by the bars, which is the priority. But also, it's just ended up being on bars that otherwise would never take your product or weren't aware of you. And now it's giving somebody an insight.
Your spot. We did not need another Inchcover 14 in the Balmoral Hotel, but we had that break-even bottle, and we reordered it every single time we finished it. It was a conversation piece as well.
And the other side of it, when you're talking about marketing spend, and you're saying, but the labels, right? That has been I've already sort of discussed some of the highlights,
talking points.
And I think if you can get, because that's the other thing as well, is if you can get on a shelf at any bar and you've got your standard, and particularly is it purposeful? Did you deliberately decide to not make any bottle really stand out as a Thompson Bros whiskey? Bottle shape, yes, you can tell where you can pick out a Glenfiddich bottle shape, but also label, branding, all the different things, because quite a lot of the time when you look at the different labels that you've put on, there's a lot of inconsistencies in there, which makes them stand out even more.
A branding person would probably say you've done it all the wrong way because your brand's nowhere to be seen. But the brand is, you look at it and the first thing you're going to do is want to look at, pick it up and touch it and see what it is, and then all of a sudden you're reading the label trying to understand what it is. And again, it wasn't by design, it was just kind of like we wanted to make art front and centre of what we were doing. It came from, I think, my first trip to Japan a long time ago. I was going around whiskey bars, I had this huge list and I was just going around bar after bar after bar, and there were so many bottles I'd never seen before, like so many things, and I was picking up, and like the art was as much part of the bottle as the liquid in the glass. And I can see behind your camera there's one on the right that's The Lady and the Unicorn by I think it's Shinanoya. It's like a 1993 Bowmore. It's absolutely excellent, but like from a distance you're like I know that's a bottle of whiskey. I now want to pick it up and find out
we
what
were
it
discussing
is.
this at the car journey up. It's almost outrageous because you're going to Japan and it could be anything on the bottle. It could be an anime series. It could be a really rogue reference. It could be a cat from Hideo Yamaoka, Whiskey Mew. It could be
what was it? The series of
but
dinosaurs and the
liquid
series
is
of
often ridiculous. It could be old. It could be old bourbon Klein Leash, and it's got a clown on the label. But there's something that appeals to
like
us whiskey nerds, or broken. That makes it cooler. It makes it.
Well, I'm just thinking of like a few of the pubs that I would go to in Edinburgh and stuff, and as a whiskey drinker, I think Angus and I we've done this plenty of times when you go out.
We have.
You maybe turn up. I drink a few pints. But I do like to move on from a beer very quickly onto a dram. So when I go to a pub that I'm maybe not too familiar with, the first thing you're looking at is like, right, so let's see.
Spring Week 10.
Let's see what we've got. And you're sort of looking around. Okay, a bit corey, but there's maybe I know I can drink that most of the night or whatever. Or if you go into a bar where there are a few whiskies, but sometimes if you went in and doing that break-even cask, a stroke of genius, because if I go into a bar and I'm looking and I see the usual suspects and then I just go, what is that? What is that there? Yeah. And of course with the labels and stuff, and if it's a break-even as well, there's every chance the bar themselves aren't going to be charging a fortune for it. It's new, it's different, it's independently bottled, it's single cask, it's reasonably priced, and that's the one you go for straight away.
Another question I've got about labels, and maybe the answer is very simple, but the failed to load website label you guys do. What was the
502?
you used to do the golden cork release. If you pull the golden cork,
did that a few times.
The error 502 came from, and this is the reason we got ballot system, is like stuff on our website. Our website was crashing.
Really?
Yeah, you go on like whatever forum or like r/Scotch, and everyone was just like, fucking website, it's fucking and there was like really at that kind of peak whiskey time when everyone was just being so stupid. There's like,
I definitely did that.
Like two fingers up to those guys. They're like, your website shit.
Yeah,
yes, it is.
No, so it was directed towards me actually.
Well, that's what you get for playing it on Reddit and
You have your own label there.
I started really looking for those ones as well. Like there was
There's some good stuff in there.
There was a Kalila. I had a Kalila, which was brilliant.
It was an Orkney, which I'm assuming must have been a Highland Park. 17-year-olds. It was class.
We've never bottled a Scapa. We've done a lot of Orkneys.
When we're talking about labels, then we've had George and Rachel Keeble from.
We should also pour one because we've got about half an hour left on episode 1. So pour something that you think's interesting from this.
Have we got glasses?
Tell us. We've got glasses here.
Right.
We'll pass them up.
We didn't want to be.
Somebody, do you want to ditch that? Do you want to consume that, Ross?
I'll
You take that glass.
But
I feel bad. It's the second time I've had it.
with George and Rachel, like they put on Fragrant Drops labels. They put off like there's sometimes the artwork's a little bit of a nod. With your stuff, is there nods? Like how do you select the liquid? If you say we're going to select that liquid and that label that goes together.
Yeah, I think unless we've got a very specific idea about what we want to achieve, then I tend to leave the artist to like. I'll give her either Katie or
And I'll pass that
Andrew.
one.
But Andrew's just going to leave to it because Andrew's just like.
Is it a couple of different artists you use?
Yeah, there's a few different folk we work with.
Hang on 2 seconds. There's a couple of conversations going on here.
Sorry.
That's all right.
What do you guys want to taste?
So I'll pass up.
Dealer's choice, whatever.
So a really cool example.
I didn't taste this.
The label here is what I would expect in a Japanese IB. Like pink, black brew, big massive robot cap, obviously.
Love the still inside
the amazing Ardnoch. So Ardnamurchan and Dornoch blended malt here.
That's a perfect example of like letting an artist be an artist, and like Katie is. So this was done by Andrew actually, but like when I went to Andrew, I was like trying to explain to him the musical Annie.
Yeah.
So like it's an Ardnoch. And like I had it in my head. We talk about these things like me, Simon, and Jack, and the guys in the distillery. Just like Ardnoch was going to be it. So we did Nick Knock with Nick Neal, and then we did Ardnoch with Ardnamurchan. So that was always going to be the name was Ardnoch. So I was always like, right, I'm going to do It's an Ardnoch Life. My goal was to do like Connell as Annie and Graham as the dog from Annie the musical. But then I was like, it was really niche with it. It's a Hard Knock Life. Yeah, it's an Hard Knock Life. Anyway, but I'll still do that.
Would you pair when you look at some of these labels, you drink, you eat with your eyes. A lot of time, it's harder to drink with your eyes as such, isn't it?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about this.
This is the one, a very new release.
Is this another large
which doesn't look similar to anything whatsoever. For the audio listeners, we have a nice bottle of water on the table that looks kind of similar to a really
1990s style.
Yeah,
it's completely unrelated.
And it's a Tullabarton, something recently bottled. Also, red wine barrique, like all the info's there. You're always using new stuff. Has there been any highlights and lowlights from what you've bottled so far? I mean, how long is
this one?
Yeah, there was a 2000.
That was
single
the
malt. It was
Ardnamurchan and Dornoch blended malt.
No. I think we had that. That was the first one. That's the one with the goose on
So the
the.
first one's
Brooklady Rins. It was one of their
I
like.
haven't tried it. Greg.
That was one, yeah.
I passed it to you, but I hadn't.
Oh, right, sorry.
I was just
So sorry, how long has the bottling been going?
Oh, so bottling as it is now, 7 years, going on 8 years.
Which actually, there's been so many new IBs come up. These are pretty established. These are bottled a lot, as you say.
Well, this one here is from 2014, but that was just for our own bar.
We try and come up with some cool ideas. I think, like I said, I tend to leave the artist to it. So, like Andrew with the Ardnoch, we're talking about like Jaeger suits and stuff, and like Power Rangers, and like pulling together. So you're pulling the two entities together to become like one bigger, better thing.
And your importers know you guys. They must like that too, and so perhaps this will work. This will be a really good theme, and also our German market are gonna go crazy for that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a generational thing as well. So like, we go to like Limburg Whisky Fair every year. We love it there, and like so many like older German guys come over and be like, they'll tell you, oh yeah, this is I hate your labels. That's so.
That is a great German accent. Thank you, because I get slaughtered for doing my German accent. Well, it's not as good as his.
They'd probably love the Tullibardine label,
because
it's very traditional. You got the tartan, you got the thistle and stuff like that.
All right.
Whereas like the younger generation, sort of guys in their 30s going into early 40s of drinkers who are new into whiskey, they're the ones that are kind of definitely picking up our stuff.
Yeah, because I mean,
obviously in Europe anyway. In Asia, it's a bit different.
Do you ever think of, well, maybe we'll deliberately cause a bit of controversy here, and that's a good thing, or is it just this is going to just be a laugh and we don't really care? Or
all press is good press.
Well, it's generally having a bit of fun. I don't think there's anything. There's nothing really offensive.
That's true. Who's going to get upset? I can honestly tell you that whether it was related or not, that the monks at Buckfast Abbey are probably not arsed.
As the lawyers, I'm worried about.
But I suppose it is interesting that you do have a group of like a section of the whiskey drinker that will look at these and be like, you're not taking it seriously enough.
No,
you should. Like there'll be people that go, a whiskey bottle should look like a particular, like a whiskey brand, a whiskey label.
Did I suggest the people that are not buying independently bottled whiskey?
No, but I just find it interesting that it's like there is that there where people will look and go, that's nonsense. You can't put cartoons on the front of whiskey.
If you were expensive and you had really like funny labels, people could maybe complain a bit, but we're really conscious on the value proposition, and the selection, the quality, and price to quality ratio is super important to us. But also, talking about being flexible margins there, one of the things we do when we're pricing, okay, you've got your rules, you'd like to make this, okay, now check it off against, we'll go on the various whiskey websites and look at recent independent releases from the last couple of years, and then kind of get the range as to what people come in and says, okay, can we make this work at the lower end of this? Yes, we can. Great. Okay, let's do it. So you're also offering a really good value proposition. It's not like you're asking them to spend loads because it has a fancy label. The quality to price ratio of the liquid kind of sells itself, and the label's a bonus, or some people might pick up because of the label, and it's not too painful to do that because you're getting good value on the liquid.
And when it comes to then working together as brothers, do you have both a different angle and skill sets that you bring to the business side of it? Is there one of you that's more into the whiskey side, and the other one that's more into like the sales and the marketing, or do you both sort of split the work?
I think we're both into all elements of the business, and probably more so with the actual business side of it the past 2 years in particular, with the kind of restructuring and so on, because we've kind of had to really both understand that fully. There's always been a kind of natural division. I'll kind of be more on the sort of marketing, sales, product side of things for the independents, and Simon's definitely got his head more. You understand the production side of things a lot more than I do, and certainly in the more technical detail of that, the engineering, the production, the planning process. So that kind of works fairly well.
You're like
Definitely-
distillery engineer as well, pretty much.
Yeah. But I mean, we could leave Phill alone in the distillery, and he'd
Oh, yeah.
he'd make good
Distillery.
whiskey. Yeah.
But by the way,
run the
do
distillery.
you realise how cool that is that you're both able to just run your own distillery?
Yeah.
Most owners of distilleries.
So, and considering how hands-on your whole
you're so
setup is,
and
as
the
well.
team, how big is the team now?
Yeah, so we're 7. We're kind of less. So, like I said, the past couple of years with what's happening with the business, it's been less so you've been in the distillery, or less so we've been in the bottling.
Oh, you're
hall,
you're 9, Phil. 9 full time.
9 full time. Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Wow.
And when as brothers, does it ever get a little bit when
No.
you get together? You have to go out into the garden and have a little wrestle to sort of establish who was right in that situation or what decision needed to be made.
No, I think we're fairly complementary. I think if there's Simon can talk me down from a ledge, and sometimes the scalpel's not necessary and the hammer's necessary, and sometimes the scalpel's necessary and the hammer's not.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time, my default is if Phil wants to do something, and I'm like, maybe not. I'll just let him do it. And
Do you go? I knew that would go.
honestly, it usually works out for him pretty well.
Oh, it'd be funny, lads. You're both absolutely great minds to have done what you've done so far. I know you've got a lot going on at the moment, and this is the next big step. But to have done and achieved what you've done so far with even just the bottlings is mental.
And what about then? If you've talked about how things have gone, and you mentioned about the hard yards when you were saying about the difficult nights and different things. And you look back, it was well worth it. What have been the biggest challenges that you've had to face?
Money.
Yeah.
Always money. The whole thing, whether it's the hotel, whether it's distillery, whether it's the independent bottling. That's the thing that will be like, it's you have to kind of stay grounded in like what it is that really drives you to do it and why you're doing it, because it's like it is tough. Like it is tough, and the landscape is tough, and we've done so much of it with the kind of with quite a we've dealt with so many issues that we kind of it's pretty. That would be the thing for me. I know it's very kind of like. It's not what you want to hear, because it's like you want to say, oh, the pump breaks from time to time.
No. It's the part that you don't appreciate.
Yeah.
But it is the part that everyone can relate to.
Yeah.
Because like everyone will have some form of shit that they have to deal with money.
Yeah.
That you have to. It's unexpected or whatever. Your cash flow's not right in your personal circumstance. Everyone will go through that shit. It's just relating it on a larger scale.
And when you look at that, the financial challenges that you have, then has it got to a stage ever where you're going, this is getting to the stage where we literally are? And has there ever been a moment where something just pops up? Because you talk about Thompson Independent Traders Limited and all.
How candid you want us to pay?
Well, I don't know, but I just love the fact that we've referenced Only Fools and Horses a couple of times. And you've mentioned about your company name and stuff. And if we were to look at that every now and then, just when you think Rodney and Del Boy they've ran out of ideas, something happens or something,
it genuinely has been like that for probably the past. Well, we've been funding the distillery project from cash flow, and then bringing the hotel into the holding company, and all of these things with restructuring. Didn't take on debt. So Dornoch is really in comparative terms to other distilleries, it's quite expensive to produce, and everything's always gone back into Dornoch. Like no matter what, independent bottling, we've not invested heavily in inventory. We're not sitting on a huge. We are sitting on a decent.
Let me check the spreadsheet.
No,
he's always
no
putting-
cash, plenty of.
Oh, you've got it.
Yeah, he's
No, but
He's always
in comparison
putting,
to probably how not a lot of independent bottlers
in comparison to Signatory,
we've done all right.
Yeah,
We've done all right from like pure hard graft.
Because
and having
when
great
you had
people
your
on our
first
business.
few casks bottled, you're like, okay, we need to sell these so I can buy the next 4 or 5 casks.
The first few casks were the easiest. They're the easiest to buy and bottle, but they're the most difficult to sell. The first one, because we had cash post crowdfunding, so we're like, oh yeah, this makes sense to do that. Don't have it sitting in the bank, and they were the most difficult to sell.
What was your first bottling, Thompson Bros bottling as it is now?
First, as it is now, is a 72 in Gordon. So, which amusingly I bought from Ian Crucier when he worked at AD Rattery.
Yeah.
Which is
there's actually a lot of 72 Inver Gordons written bottled.
Yeah, it was good, and it wasn't expensive. Then we followed up. We did some Coronis, which is like, but nobody was doing that. Some European, guys like Velier and things were doing it, but we were trying to sell 18-year-old heavy style Coroni.
And do you still bottle run?
Not in the past year or so, because I just found the market went mental. It was stupid.
The
It was
value,
just really
value
stupid.
just wasn't there for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
So the value was there.
Didn't
for a
align
period.
with what you guys were looking for as
Yeah, it
bottlers.
wasn't. It didn't align with what people were actually willing to pay for them,
Yeah.
and that's as simple as that. And it's like it's not, wasn't being treated like it. But I know there is people who will sit and drink rum like we drink whiskey, but there's so few compared to
Yeah.
whiskey drinkers. So like when it comes to like 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 pound bottles, which is where these like 90s cronies would have to be, which is the stuff that everybody wants. It's the sexy stuff. It was getting super difficult. We were 70 quid for our first crony, and we
Which
couldn't
is
sell it.
mental.
Yeah,
We couldn't sell it.
97 crony.
97, 17-year-old, I think.
Yeah, really cheap, and took ages to sell.
And then we followed up with we did an 18-year-old straight after.
Because I bet you were so excited at the time, going, "Oh, this is going to be a massive success. This is
No,
going
we
to
weren't
sell."
thinking success. We were thinking, does it taste good? So we put a cool label on it, and does it taste good? And we.
Is it in here?
No, I don't think there is, but there's. Yeah, that was the goal.
Were you surprised that it struggled to sell though? or-
No, because
okay.
nobody gave a shit about that sort of stuff.
Okay.
We did.
Yeah.
I literally overnight the whole stock on the website.
Because I know 2 or 3 people who buy and collect Corona, but I'm only ever going to know these 2 or 3 people that buy and collect Corona because
It's
that's
like, how many Corona can you drink? Like how much Corona can you actually drink? It's a beautiful, beautiful spirit, but like how many bottles can you get?
Like that moment then when things start to tick over and you're going like, oh wait, this is actually working. What was that like then? What did it feel like when you, and what was the sort of moment?
It kind of seems like you're still waiting for that moment.
No, it's always worked in it. It was actually doing really well, super comfortable. But just the kind of the stretch point was funding the Struie Distillery project through planning permission, design, architects, then going through the building warrant phase of that. So effectively, before we wanted to get anyone else involved, we wanted to have it heavily de-risked because there's a whole bunch of speed bumps along the way. What if you get knocked back at planning? What if they do archaeological trenching? They find a Pictish fort. That's game over.
Right.
What if you sink your borehole and the water's no good? So we wanted to get past all of these ourselves from cash flow, and that's probably the stretch point where making all that progress, and we didn't really want to take other people's money until you'd gotten over all those potential speed bumps that could be a project killer or it could be a massive project delayer. So we wanted to go as far as we could doing that, and so like all that extra funding into that, plus doing the hotel takeover at the same time. That's
for professionals.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the boring part of a
There's a lot of
story behind
patience
it.
as well. How long does it take to get planning permission for something like a second distillery?
When did we start?
So we got caught in the change of the Scottish planning framework as well.
Oh,
So we got,
great fun.
So we
Because
went
I think maybe the last time I was here 2 years ago, did you already apply for planning permission?
probably, yeah. So we got it in like October 23. We actually got planning permission.
Yes.
So that's
Okay.
18 months
Wow.
later, and we should be breaking ground in the summer.
Wow.
Right.
And that's what we're looking
takes so
forward to.
much time.
By the way, in terms of you were talking about spreadsheets and stuff like that, and I find it interesting. I have a brother who is the sort of we're slightly we get on very, very well, but we're also so occasionally, but we're also like very different in terms of I'm very impulsive, he's very calculated. So we work quite well together. It might be interesting to see if you guys have that, but. In terms
From
of
the look that Phil just gave Simon, it looks like that.
but when you're looking at buying casks then, because I would be a nightmare, right? I'd be going, just buy it. And they'll be saying, well, it's a bit pricier. How would we manage to make the margin? No, just get it. It'll be cool. Imagine having that. Do you have a dynamic there where the parent you have to look at that? Do you have a process where you'll say, because you might come across a cask in a spreadsheet that you could buy in a parcel and go, wow. That is the cask we're looking for. But as you've just said, cash is the biggest issue. So you then look at it and go, but we do need to pay the lawyers for the borehole planning permission, or the water board had to come out, and we're just going to have to pass on that.
Can I just add on top of that? Sorry, can I just add on top of that question? Like, how much are you buying? Much just new make spirit and then completely laying it down yourself, or is it all?
Not a lot. Dornoch's our new make. We are buying some new make, but only if it's like an opportunity to get something that isn't normally available.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we're from something we know is still going to be around, fairly available in a few years. So our new fillings, is Dornoch, 8 years of production, 40 something weeks a year, 6 days a week, laying casks down. So that's our new fillings. Normally an independent bottler's doing a mixture of mature, semi-mature, and new fillings and getting that kind of stream in behind.
And that is the difference we spoke about an indie bottler and an independent bottler.
Yeah.
Some indie bottlers are massive multi-million corporations that can do whatever they want.
Well, come on then. Who's the impulsive one? Who's the one that goes, let's do it, and the other one that goes, well, let's just
I think
with
the independent, I'm pretty balanced. Like, I'm quite impulsive. I know if it's a good deal. I know if it's good liquid. I'll know if we can get out at a good price, but I'll always run my margin to make sure that it works out. And I think, hearing you say that you would be like that, I think I would be, but when you look at the bank balance and you're like, okay, no, actually we only have this. And
so is it quite easy for you to pass up, if you could say, right?
100%. Actually, it's worked out really well for us in the past 18 months where we've been super tight for cash, ultra selective, because there's been so much stuff that's been way overpriced in the market, and it's totally okay just to buy out. It's been really good. So coming round full circle, we've done all right because we've not put loads of money into junk casks or really expensive casks over the past couple of years, because there was a period where you just had to, you don't have a choice. The broker would be like, that's there, do you want it? It's either you want it or you don't want it, or give me an offer. Whereas now it's like, oh, hi perhaps we can string it out. Maybe you could just pay a deposit and then 6 months later you could pay, so loads of negotiation and stuff now, whereas before they were just it was money. I think one guy said, summed up to me, he's like, oh, I'm actually having to work now. And it's there's a point where it's just I have casks. You're like, casks, whiskey, that's going to make me money. And they could just sell it.
And then the other thing is we had Paul Main from Hunter Lang on there, and he was talking about being at a show, and it was a 40-odd-year-old, 46 or something like that, and someone said, well done on bottling that at 46, and he said, no, well done to the company for not bottling it earlier. So in terms of, I don't know how much casks you have laid down and how often you visit them to go, and has there ever been a point where you're going, we should put that out now because that'll be great, but at the same time going, or we can hold it back a little bit longer?
That's always been our Dornoch, really, isn't it? There's a few bits in the warehouse, but not much that we're sitting on.
You just have the space to be re-racking and playing around with loads of stuff for the
I think there's I think our last cask of, was it 1990 Secret Isla, which same source as all the other stuff, so people probably know what that is. Phil's very keen to try and get that to 40, and whereas whenever money gets tight, I'm like, well, we could sell
but I suppose that's also the problem with your own new make, because it's we're only going to have the oldest stuff as long as we keep it getting older. If we start to bottle it, then the oldest stuff is going to get younger and younger and younger.
Talking about the size of casks and the way that it kind of set up.
I tasted. You guys can probably try some later. It was a sherry hogshead of Dornoch. It was cask 44, and it's the first time I've had it a few times, not that, but this little parcel of cask over the past few years, and it's been oh god, this is a million miles away. But it's actually I'm now feeling this is amazing. I'm still going to give it as long as we can possibly give it. But it is tasting incredible.
And so just before we kind of
I want to ask a couple more questions because we are fast approaching the time. You guys need to get away.
Your indie bottling, what your favourite one is?
Well, I was literally saying, tell me before we finish. Look at that. That's what 3 bit hours of a car with you would do.
Telepathy. We've done well. What's the favourite thing you've bottled personally?
I think privately the sort of little Glenvore flagons. Glenvore Springbank, these sort of flagons that came.
Count.
No, it doesn't count. But it's privately. It's bottled on my mum and dad's kitchen table. The Springbank and the Glenvore, and then there was a Glenlivet.
Came from the 1937 Glenvore.
1937 Glenvore. I mean, we could never commercially sell it because it's prove to me it's 1937 Glenvore. But you taste it and you're like, it's an epic old Highland whiskey. It's amazing.
Okay, but from a
there's been a lot of cool stuff. I think I was delighted to do the first. We're to do it's a kind of OBIB Kanoske was really cool. We did the first ever independent Bimber back in the day. That seems like a long time ago. We missed an opportunity with a couple of Kalashnikovs on the label.
I love that. That's it. You won't be hearing from his lawyers anyway. So
I'm a super fan of Darius, and I miss him from the whiskey space. So Yeah, I think he was doing great stuff, and he had
whatever.
Yeah, a
you
whole
know,
other thing.
if you grew up in post-Soviet Poland,
Exactly.
Opportunities
Yeah.
there for you.
And so, what's your favourite thing about Simon?
Oh, that's probably pipped me to it a little bit there.
Well-
I've got a real soft spot for the series of Stratherns we did, which was kind of ours, kind of not, kind of Tony Reman Clark's.
Okay.
So yeah, I had a soft spot for that. So Tony's personal casks we bottled and sold them on his behalf. And yeah, just got a real soft spot for the distillery, for the early work we did there, getting involved a little bit when they were setting up.
Cool.
So yeah, that was pretty cool, including Strathern cask number 1 we bottled too.
That's
That was
epic.
fun.
And is there anything you've not bottled that you'd like to bottle?
Obviously, Speyburn.
Yeah. Silence.
There's a few. There's things we could have bottled, but just when
Too expensive.
When,
Yeah.
when
right.
Bowmore and Springbank.
Wow. Bowmore and Springbank are just the prices are just we couldn't put it in glass and
I'm
put
so
it
happy about ourselves.
and put it out to customers at a price we're happy with. It's just the right stocks never turned up for that.
I don't think it ever will for a while, that's for sure.
Well, let me know you know Bowmore.
Yeah, please.
What's your favourite Thompson Bros bottling?
It's hard. I mean, I tell you what. There was. What was the peated one that we just literally had?
The Rins
That was-
Bruichladdich.
Yeah, from Bruichladdich.
Fantastic.
First of all, bourbon barrels.
Fantastic.
Angus?
Absolutely like it.
I probably the over 6-year-old the blend.
What?
I've had.
It'd be hard for me to argue against that.
Yeah.
The Tesco one did pop up. I'm terrible at it when I go to Diggers when we record, and it's like, what do you want? And I just know if I look up there and the Thompson Brothers, I can picture it on the shelf. I know exactly where it is. But the problem is, if I see one I've already had and I know I like, I'll just get that one down again. But one thing I do want to say is, you've invited us up here. It's been absolutely fantastic. This is day 1. We've had a good day already, but we have a Friday night to enjoy in Dornoch. So give us the highs and lows. What are we looking at doing here? What can we enjoy behind the bar? What are we looking at trying to? Is there a few other bars in the town that we should be visiting and do a mini Dornoch pub crawl before our trip to the distillery tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to be in here, but Eric, who's got the Eagle down the street there, it's quite a good wee pub, and he's actually got a really decent little whiskey selection. He's also got quite a few rums. He likes his rums.
Okay.
So there's a few anomalies there you wouldn't expect in that sort of pub.
And he does the occasional little independent bottling himself as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
He's
good
got a few of those in the bar.
And obviously in here, the hangout in the bar, it's a good place to be. There's quite
Whiskey behind. What have we got to look forward to? What's up? What's?
Depends on how much you want to spend.
Well,
There's some really cool stuff.
Yeah, there's one of the highlights for me at the moment. There's a 69 Jura, which is for Lord Astor, and it's a private cask, probably filled in the 80s. I checked the ABV with our hydrometer, and it was like 55% ABV.
Right.
Little sherry hoggy, just very little out there about that liquid. That's open by the dram. There's loads of great Chi-Chi booze.
This is also your best chance ever to try a variety of Dornochs.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to find
forth
it.
Now, just finally before we do, to lead on to episode 2 of this series that we're doing tomorrow. You've mentioned it. There's a distillery on site here, and we're looking forward to seeing that. But you've also talked a little bit about the big plans. So the big plan is that you're now crowdfunding for a new development of a second distillery.
Yeah, are we live? I don't know.
I'm not sure if we're live yet. So
This will go
When are you going live?
because we can release this.
either tonight or tomorrow morning.
This is getting released in
Next
sorry,
Thursday.
lads.
This will be next
We're
Thursday.
actually in the future right now.
All right.
So you've released it, you've started, you've made it. Congratulations. Your money problems are over.
Doctor Who release coming out soon.
Wow, you managed to sell out everything in 24 hours. The fastest whiskey crowdfunding ever.
Well, that's it. It's either going great or it's not going.
Well,
great.
look, if it's about to go even better when this is
And
released.
so people need to listen.
So for
to
people who are
it.
listening to this now, and they can't wait until next week's episode, which will be the distillery episode, how can people find out about the crowdfunding? How can people get involved?
Oh yeah, so just jump on the Crowdcube website and type in Struie or Dornoch and we'll turn up.
Or look at our socials, LinkedIn,
LinkedIn.
I know.
You recently
Oh
LinkedIn.
god.
That's where the money is.
Tony Facebook. You've changed, Phil.
Hashtag crowdfunding.
So in terms of socials, because I made that mistake, I spent ages looking for Thompson Brothers.
Dornoch Distillery.
Dornoch Distillery on Instagram. What is it? What is it? Crowdcube.
Platform. Yeah.
Go to Crowdcube, type in Dornoch or Struie. Now Struie, how do you spell Struie?
Struie.
Struie, nice and easy there.
Yeah.
We'll be pushing this everywhere, or you'll see it on our socials and things like that as well.
And we'll see everybody next week for the
And we'll
part two.
and we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys at breakfast. I just like to also say thank you very much for putting Angus and I in the penthouse. It was really, and I would say that the hot tub definitely has more than space for more than two.
Yeah.
So Ross,
I'll leave you to it. Lads.
you've got a sleeping bag in the corner. You've got a sleeping bag in the corner.
I'll leave you to it.
But
Lads.
listen, thanks very much,
Remember
guys.
wear protection, lads.
All the very best, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. And
Still got Animal Parties Limited. What was it?
Party Animals Limited, music for all occasions.
Have you still got that on?
Nah.
No. It's an insight to your character.
Party Animals Limited.
Have you got the domain at least?
No.
Are we recording now? Yeah.
All right. So.
Right.
Party Animals Limited.
Party Animals Limited, music for all occasions.
Can't believe I was in bed first last night.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, Angus, you know what to do. Clap us in. Right, here we are, lads. The morning after the night before.
That is the most sombre, most delicate intro I remember us having.
Well, the thing is, this time yesterday we'd already arrived at the Tomatin Distillery. We were giddy.
Yeah. I predict in a future episode we will feature the Tomatin Distillery.
Yeah, I think that. So it's the morning after that. It's the first 2-day event of the Whisky Stories podcast.
Grand Tour.
The Grand Tour.
Dornoch double header.
Aye.
Love it.
Dornoch double header.
And what a backdrop we've got, eh?
Hello. Well, aye.
Digs are decent. Digs are very decent.
Absolutely fine. We'll get Chuck to do his camera work.
Oh yeah.
We had a nice evening in the castle last night.
We did, aye.
A fine selection of malts behind the bar.
Too many.
Yeah, we tried some.
Too many. We tried Dornoch exclusive.
The hotel.
Dornoch Castle exclusive Ardmarken, which was very nice.
That was lovely. You'd gone to bed by that point. We Ross couldn't handle it. We Ross had to go to bed. The wee man had a really big day. He'd been really good.
It's all tuckered out.
He was shattered. We just thought, we'll get him.
Chuck me in.
Chuck and I will tuck him in.
He needed his TikTok time, to be fair.
Don't accuse me of that.
He was all snug with the screen light of his phone.
Was he?
But I tell you what I was excited for. The best time at staying in a hotel. Breakfast.
Breakfast was good.
Maybe says a lot about me.
Well, I was going to say the other thing last night. Chuck was quite surprised as he asked for a Dornoch, any Dornoch. There was a range of about 6 or 7 Dornochs, and
got them here actually.
The woman behind the bar said, "Well, this is probably the ordinary Dornoch."
Yeah.
So you got the bog standard Dornoch.
I think I did call it out. I was like, that is like the most humble brag of all time. Like, you're like, oh yeah, this is a very standard release from Dornoch. I was like, how can you be in a position to say that?
You mentioned like being a father of son and everything, and then coming to you've been to lots of distilleries,
yeah.
But this does just feel a bit different for you.
Oh, I mean, it just. I think the thing with Phill and Simon, what they do is like it's just they're really focusing on like the minute details.
Yeah.
No expense spared.
Like we've gone to Tomatin. When we were there, enjoy that episode when it comes out. But it's
that's going to be a fun episode.
Yeah,
it's going to edit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm worried about how I'm going to come out in that cut. To be fair.
But it's not like.
But you're not. You are hearing like we use yeast, we use barley, and very specific about fermentation times. And then what we're going to hopefully see from these guys is just a different view. At that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But I mean, I think looking back yesterday, it was a big blur really because it was an early start, 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, bearing in mind if you're listening to this, it's now we're like 2 and a bit weeks after where we are in the future of where we are right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, we left Edinburgh at 7 o'clock in the morning. We drove up Friday morning, stopped at Tomatin, had a great day there. As I say, Chuck's has it. That is probably one of Chuck's best performances of the Whisky Stories podcast. We look forward to that episode. But we came up, and Phill and Simon, the hospitality we've received first and foremost, absolutely fantastic. They took us down into this little room. You'll be able to see that. That was last week's episode, and they treated us. And I was sort of like, I mean, when you look at the whiskies on the table.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of looking at pictures here of it. There's one. The one. I mean, it kind of passed us by because there's so many bottles of whiskey on the table. There's so much getting poured and passed around, and I I couldn't remember too much this morning. Thankfully, I recorded a lot of it on my phone. And a Thompson Brothers Dornoch Springbank, 1950 to 1978.
I know.
Drawn 15/8/1996. I was like, we drank some of that. We drank that.
Yeah.
What was the tomatin that we got passed around?
Oh, Tomatin 1976. Really interesting.
Jesus Christ, lads!
But it was the Tomatin 1976, so it was bottled exclusively for a Japanese whiskey club.
Yeah.
And so again, just bonkers that it even exists here. That's the second bottle I'm aware of in Scotland.
Ah,
I seen it about 3 years ago at Whiskey Fringe.
it was
Just
wild.
delicious.
Phenomenal. Really, really delicious. I would have loved a second sip, Russ.
Yeah, I feel bad. 'cause I have had
Ross
it
has had
before.
it before, but he decided I'll carry on drinking that.
His exact words as he like finished the glass, I was like, I've already had this, but oh well. And then I'm sitting there just going,
You did get a little taste.
Yeah, I did.
We tried it each, but you finished it. Well done, Ross.
That would have been my first bit of tomatin of the day.
I was
unlike some.
simply just.
Of course, yeah. I've still got your driver's drums in my bag, and I was really tempted to just keep hold of them and not let. And hopefully, you forgot
I
them.
was simply following the orders of our gracious host Phill, who said, "Somebody finish that," and he handed it to me.
Aye.
It's my duty at that point.
Well, the boys
Yeah,
looked after us, and then afterwards, after we finished recording, well, first of all, you'll the sort of first time we've ever done it where we've had guests have to leave early. They had a very important call. And they left, but they just said, "Look, you guys are welcome to stay down here with all this whiskey that we've provided you on the table to carry on." And
So I hope he's enjoyed that.
we
last
did,
week.
aye, that was good fun. And then we went upstairs, and we had another few. It was highballs we had.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We went on to the highballs.
Pizza Stories podcast.
The pizzas we had. And who knew that Dornoch
Pizzas at
you could get?
Dornoch Castle,
Aye.
yeah, very good pizza.
If there is a pizza region in Scotland, it's exclusively in that hotel. Because it was absolutely
That was,
amazing.
this
So
is
good.
well, this is sounding like a massive ringing endorsement for them, but no, we have genuinely had a very good time here.
So far.
So far, it's only been 50% of our trip. But like I said, what were the highballs that we had?
I can't remember.
But they were purple.
It was some
Great.
kind of berry and soda with whiskey. It was delicious.
It was very, very nice.
I think it was a cordial that Phil had made.
Yes, yeah.
It was salt and well, there was some salt in it. I really needed. I'll be honest. I really needed the pizzas at the time, so I was more focused on getting that.
But I would say, like, I think it was we'd had a fair bit of whiskey up till that point.
Yeah.
Yesterday, and basically that highball was the perfect sort of like palate cleanser.
And
Just before going into a pizza to then be able to build, and we did a little mini, I say pub crawl in Dornoch. 3 pubs I think you can count because we'd started here, went to another one.
Yes,
I think you had to wipe your feet on the way out. So big shout to that pub will not be named.
And
then
I
we
will
went to
say we
another
were
pub.
warned that maybe wouldn't be for us.
And then we went to another bar. No, I enjoyed it. It was nice. The people were friendly enough anyway. Look,
It did go completely silent when we walked in.
Yeah.
Like, conversation picked back up.
and then I heard.
That's it. Pool
That's
cues
the
were picked up.
I heard
and everything.
like, there's a podcast, boys. That's what we heard.
That's the city boys with the mics.
There's a boys. Aye.
It's like a
There's Angus, a whiskey fan.
Yeah, there's a head of research.
There's a research Angus. But and then we went to another one, the Eagle, which was nice. We had a dram in there, and then we came back and we had a dram and tomato.
yeah.
We went, and then we came back here and carried on. I mean, I think. What did you mention the Ardnamurchan earlier?
I mentioned the Ardnamurchan.
That was absolutely delightful.
It was
Again,
great. There was an old bottle in a Glenelgin we had as well, which is very nice, and an 8-year-old Bowmore, which I think was distilled in 1992.
Yeah, bottles were like
that was
2,000.
very nice.
That was lovely.
That
I
was
loved
really
that.
nice.
Yeah.
Almost kind of clear liquid as well. One of those ones that's just.
And then it was.
You know, the liquid's almost clear, but I mean the flavour.
And as we talked about on the Justine Hazelhurst episode where she brought out her book Opening the Case, the Affairs of the Patson Brothers, I got treated to a bedtime stories with Angus, the whiskey fan, last night. We were bunking up.
Yeah.
There was it was
the 2 of you sudsed up in a hot tub, was it?
because apparently your hot tub in your room isn't working.
It's just not big enough for the both of us.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's just a walk-in shower.
It's been labelled as a bidet, but I'm really saying we can.
Well, I went for a lovely swim this morning in the pool. At the spa. It was great. Went for a spa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really sorted you out.
Yeah.
Scottish Highlands, just breathe in the air, mate. That's what
It's
you need to
lovely.
do.
There is no spa. I was hoping one of you went, what? There's a spa. But no, I mean, how, you guys bunked up last night.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was fine. No, nothing crazy happened.
It's certainly not something I expected to be going into.
Chuck
the
bring out
podcast
any of
for.
his Japanese drams?
Yeah, do you know, we actually have brought so much whiskey between us.
Yeah, we've not touched
Yeah, we've
any
not
of it.
touched Any of it.
I've got 2 empty hip flasks that I was hoping to get filled.
How are you going to do that? Just scrounging, being a fifer?
I thought, like, we might get I'll get some good drams, but anyway, I guess I had a great time. We woke up at back at 6 this morning, didn't we?
I think so, yeah.
Had a lovely little blether. We could have recorded another podcast.
All right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, here's the boys. Morning, lads.
Good
morning.
I'll give your mic over to
How are you guys?
Hand a mic over to you.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
So how, we'll get you around this way,
We
I
were
think.
just explaining our Dornoch pub crawl last night.
Aye.
Alright, you sit down.
No. He's our cameraman. Last night we were just couldn't compliment the hospitality that received nothing. We were just saying that we could maybe probably start another podcast called Pizza Stories, based on last night's set. I mean, who knew that Dornoch was the place to get?
In Scotland,
Yeah.
exclusively within your hotel.
It was lovely.
Good.
And I only stayed in
Now,
hotels for the breakfast, so that was fantastic as well. It's got to be said.
We were trying to remember the highballs.
Yes.
What are they?
It's a grape and rosemary sea salt syrup that we make, and then we infuse black skin grapes with whiskey, kind of bake it off, sous vide it off, nice low temperature, and get the grape infused
Whiskey
in the
highballs
tannin.
popular up here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we make them popular.
bringing that Japanese culture,
Yeah.
that highball. It's funny we were talking about it just recently.
We had a highball culture like in the 19th century.
Yeah.
Whiskey and soda, that was
Yeah.
the big thing. So
You're quite a purist as well. You are a whiskey soda fan, aren't you?
big whiskey soda fan, love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a tart for a whiskey ginger ale, but that just keeps my blood good,
I like the soda because it's like you get the clarity of the whiskey.
Of the spirit.
Yeah, true,
I like that.
absolutely. Right, so I believe we're here today for you guys to show us around the distillery.
How far have we got to go?
Where is it?
Okay. Just there.
That building there.
That building there. With the
So that's the building I could see when I was showering this morning. So I think that's the first time I've taken a shower in view of a distillery.
There you go. There we go.
Yeah, so we just redirect the water for processed water.
Exactly. Oh well, I hope you've got a good filtration system. Right. Well, let's go and take a look. Eh?
Yeah,
All right.